Hey YouTube, today going to be doing a video on essentially the 20 unit that my partner and I recently purchased. We're going to go through the whole thing, so how we found the deal, how we are going to or already have funded it on the front end, how we're going about renovating the property, the improvements we plan to make, and just our general plan with the property, our long-term financing plan, and then kind of what we see with the property over the next 5 to 10 years and what we plan to do with it. I'm going to switch over to the whiteboard and then going to break down the numbers on that. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments. All right, we'll see you there.
All right, guys, I've got the whiteboard pulled up here, and just going to kind of start by breaking down how we came across this opportunity, the 20-unit apartment complex. So it came through our marketing campaign, which was a high equity list. Obviously, majority of the properties on that list are single families and small multifamilies. Just so happened that this is more of an old school landlord that owned the property in his name, which is why, we had good contact information for him, ended up getting a hold of him. And, basically after several months of going back and forth and making sure it was the right opportunity for us, ended up moving forward. And here we are, having purchased it a few weeks ago now. So obviously, not the most common way to source, a multifamily like this as an opportunity, but it just so happened that if, you come across a old school owner that owns it in their own name, obviously you're much more likely to get good contact information for them and you can get a hold of them that way. But essentially, we put the property under contract for $750,000. So that was the purchase price. And now, as mentioning that it was an old school landlord, he was managing the property himself and didn't keep very good records of expenses. So we had to, basically look at what other properties in the area run at as far as an expense ratio goes, and what we thought our expenses would be, running the property as it should be. And that, led us to believe that we would be at a 45% expense ratio. And that was confirmed through the appraisal as well, which was reassuring to see. And so, that being said, we'll kind of circle back to the expenses more on, now that we've purchased the property and kind of our plan with it. So the property did appraise for $775,000 through that appraisal, and that was with 16 out of the 20 units rented, and those rents are average about $5 to $550 a unit in income. And so, with that being said, the as-is appraisal worked in our favor, and you'll kind of hear as I talk about it more. The ARV appraisal, the after repair value, did not work in our favor. The appraiser determined that rents could only be raised to $600 a month, which we, from being in the market and seeing the rental demand currently, that's just not the case. Rents have significantly risen in the past few years, and the appraiser was just a little bit, too far out of the realm of the area to really see the full scope of what's going on. And so, being over 2 hours away, it just, didn't work out. He wasn't seeing eye to eye with our plan, which, fortunately still worked in our favor. We were able to pull the private capital together and still capitalize on the opportunity. So basically, we planned to turn originally just the vacant units and then anticipated a few more tenants moving out with the raise in rent. Currently we plan to renovate about 12 of the units before the appraisal. And so with that being said, our renovation budget is $200,000, with taking into account some of the exterior maintenance we plan to do, and then turning 12 of those units. Each unit currently costs us about $12,000 to $12,500 to renovate. And so that puts us around the $150,000 mark and leaves an additional $50,000 for exterior work, which mainly just involves painting or staining some of the decking, the exterior wood there. And so that puts us, at the $950 mark as far as what we'll be into the property for, as far as the purchase price and the renovations go, not including any of the lender fees and the refinance we will incur, or just general interest payments that we're going to be making to these private money lenders. We'll jump into the after repair value and how we structured the deal based on that, and then I'll circle back into how we structured the actual funds to purchase it. So what we did was we raised rents right away to 700, as market is consistently across the board much higher than that. Rents were currently at like the 5 to 550 mark, so is a bit of a jump, but we felt that it was the right thing to do. Because an affordability standpoint, we were barely break even cash flow on the purchase with the rents at the current 5 to 550 mark, and also just because market rent is around that 900 mark now for 2 bed 1 baths. And so with 8 units at 700 a month, which again is our long-term plan over the course of the year to get 12 units up to the 850 mark once renovated. And then the other 8 units at the 700 mark, that is a total monthly gross of 15,800. So multiply that by 12, and that puts annual at just shy of 190,000 at 189,600. So we'll just put 190. And the expense ratio there again, 45% is what we calculated we would be able to run at initially, with the intent to get that down to 40% once we kind of see, how making some of these upfront exterior, taking care of some of the capital expenditures, in 5 years, if we've built up quite a reserve account, we might be able to adjust those capital reserves, and how aggressively we're setting aside money for those things, as the property does have vinyl siding, a new, long-term metal roof, and cinder block foundations, which are in excellent shape. So with all that being said, the expenses at a 45% expense ratio come in at 85,500. Which leaves NOI at 105,000. And now, what we did there is assess the cap rate that the appraiser used on the front end. He basically said it was an 8 cap based on the comparables he had, ranging from 6 to 8 caps. And so, because the property isn't stabilized, that's why we got the less favorable assignment of cap rates there. And so that's, obviously good in our eyes now that we've been able to purchase the properties, that we would be able to, say be in that 7 range once the property is, fully occupied, all 20 units rented at, market rent. And so for the sake of this, we'll take the, less favorable cap rate and just say, let's evaluate this based on an 8 cap. At an 8 cap, all we're doing is taking the 105,000 net operating income and dividing it by 0.08. Which gives our value of, right around 1.3 million. It's 1.312. And so, what we're looking at there is, okay, well, where does that put our loan on the back end when we go to refinance? And so at a 1.3 million valuation, we know we can get a loan at 80% of the value. So say at that 8 cap, we'd be able to get a loan at 1,040,000. And so obviously, right now we can say, okay, that looks pretty good. 750 plus the 200 for the renovations is 950. That's less than 1,040,000. Obviously, we're going to have some closing costs and things like that. So so far it looks good. Now what we do is we take that mortgage and say, okay, can we afford a mortgage for 1.04 million? And so a mortgage on that comes in at around just shy of 5,300 a month, which the mortgage there would be just shy of 64,000 a year. And so that leaves our true net at 41,000 a year. And so, obviously, when everything's said and done, everything goes as planned. We don't have any money left in a property that's now netting us, truly 41,000 a year. That's obviously pretty attractive. And so, now we'll circle back and look at how we structured the actual purchase of this. So we have a private money lender that lends 500,000 in first position and receives interest payments at 10% monthly. So upon the refinance, they'll receive their 500,000 back, and say the last month of the interest payment prorated to whenever we actually do that refinance within the month. The second private money lender in second position lends 250,000 for the remainder of the purchase, also at 10%, and will also receive the 250,000 back at the time of the refinance with that prorated last interest payment. The third private money lender lends the renovation budget of 200,000, and this is deferred interest. So because it's deferred, we're not paying them monthly through the project. We're paying them back in a lump sum upon the refinance. And so because it is deferred, it's at a higher interest rate. We're paying them 14%. So say we do the refinance right at the year mark, they'll get an additional 30,000, 28,000 back in interest, which means, on the refinance, we're going to pay back 950 plus the last two prorated interest payments for the first two private money lenders, plus the additional 28,000. So in order to refinance and pay back all the lenders, that puts us at 950 plus 28, so 978. And so having the refinance at an 80% loan to value at 1.04 million, between closing costs and everything, we know we'll be able to pay back the 978, not leave any capital in the deal, pay all the closing costs, and basically own a 20-unit apartment complex that we don't have any money tied into, that is netting us 41,000 a year. So if you have any questions more specifically about any part of this process, feel free to drop that in the comments, and I'll be happy to dive into it more. But other than that, that's just kind of a general overview of the property.